When we press play, we enter a story someone else is telling about someone else's life. And sometimes that story is a warning. Sometimes it's a memorial. And sometimes, if you let it, it changes how we feel about the world. 241 Ethnography. Hi, I'm Shazia, and you're tuning into my BCM 241 Media Ethnography project. For the past 3 months, I have been studying ethnography, and honestly, it's been a journey because being human is hard. We all carry our own judgments, our own biases, and most of the time, we don't even realize how deeply our thoughts are shaped by the culture we grew up in and the media we consume every day. For this project, I focused on one specific media community, the true crime podcast community, and more specifically, Rotten Mango, which is created by Stephanie Sue. I began as a fan at first, but after I chose this as my niche, I became something else too, a participant observer. I didn't just listen anymore. I watched myself listening. I took notes, I questioned my reactions, and I began asking some uncomfortable questions. How does a community that consumes true crime show empathy? What shapes whether we feel compassion or just curiosity? What decides which victims are remembered and which are forgotten? This is a story about tone, power, and how listening itself becomes an action. True crime content has always existed in many sectors, from newspaper columns to television documentaries, and now podcasts, which has changed everything. It made crime more intimate and personal to people. It entered our ears late at night, during our commutes, while we scroll, while we eat. And Rotten Mango is one of the most recognized true crime podcasts today. Unlike highly dramatized crime content, Stephanie Sue is known for her calm tone, emotional transparency, and victim centered narration. She does not only present herself as a detective or judge, but also a careful storyteller. And that became the foundation for my research. My research question asks, how does audience engagement within the Rotten Mango True Crime podcast community reflect empathy and ethical awareness through storytelling tone and platform structures? This project is an autoethnography, meaning I have a dual role in this research. I am both a participant and a researcher. My methods included participant observation, field notes, journaling, and platform observation across YouTube, Spotify, and Reddit. I also use the scrolling back method of digital ethnography, where I compare older episodes with newer ones, along with their audience reactions. This helped me track how engagement patterns change over time. What made this research different is that my own emotions also became data. As I listened, I didn't just record what people said in the comments. I recorded how I felt while listening. This is where reflexivity became central to my work. Here's a small moment that made my research real. I was listening to an episode late at night. Stephanie paused and said something heart wrenching, and I remember a knot in my chest. Then I realized it was not just curiosity, it felt like sorrow and care. That pause became the lens I used. If a pause can turn curiosity into care for me, what does it do to others? That question became my study's core. One clear epiphany emerged. Episodes with slower pacing, trigger warnings, and victim centered narration produced more emotionally reflective engagement. I noted repeated evidence like longer, heartfelt replies on platforms, with listeners saying, thank you for covering this, or sharing their feelings about it. Episodes with heavy procedural details like the timelines, dates, legal technicalities, they all produce their more fact-driven discussion. Before beginning this research, I believed that audience engagement in true crime was driven mainly by the shocking nature of the crime themselves. As a listener, I assumed that mystery, violence, and suspense were what kept me interested. But my observation proved me otherwise. The same listeners who react with grief to a particular narrative might react analytically to a more forensic one. That difference told me that empathy is not automated, it's produced. This is directly reflecting on Keith's concept of thick description, where meaning is created not only through the events but through emotional and cultural layer surrounding those events. In Rotten Mango, Stephanie Sue's pauses, softened tone, and moments of silence act as emotional cues that guides how audiences interpret violence. The crime becomes not just information but an ethically framed experience. From an ethical ethnographic perspective, her trigger warnings and disclaimers also function as emotional protection, not just legal protection. As both a listener and a researcher, I realized that even my own emotional well being was being guided by storytelling design. And that changed everything. The second epiphany was a hard truth. Not every crime has the same chance of being told. Cases with accessible public records, court files, and media coverage are the ones creators can safely narrate. Legal risk, production costs, and algorithmic visibility all shape the story. I noticed that many high engagement episodes focuses on victims who were visible in mainstream. This is where visibility bias lives. Some stories becomes public because they are public, a loop of attention. An NPR discussion I noted explained how legal safety and source availability limit what podcasters can cover. That is not just practical, it is ethical. Whose stories count enough to be amplified? That is the questions that asked. This reflects the missing white woman syndrome, where white female victims receive disproportionate media attention and public sympathy. From a platform studies perspective, creators are also shaped by algorithms, monetization, and legal frameworks. True crime does not exist in isolation. It exists inside media infrastructures that decide visibility. The most confronting part of this epiphany was recognizing my own participation in the system. I realized that by listening, sharing, commenting, and engaging, I too helped decide which victims stayed visible and which disappeared into silence. By simply repeatedly watching and going through comments, I made some stories count. This realization created critical reflexivity, one of the most important ethnographic skills. As we have come to an end, I found that this project changed how I listened to stories. I still love stories, but now I listen with care. I notice those pauses. I ask why a case is visible, and I try imperfectly to pay attention to who is absent from the conversation. Listening can be a small act of care, or it can be a first step toward collective attention that leads to justice. Either way, it matters. My first epiphany showed me that storytelling tone produces ethical engagement. My second showed me that the media structures decide whether these stories are allowed to circulate or not. Together, they reveal that empathy, justice, and visibility in true crime are not accidental. They are built through narrative design and platform power. I now listen differently, more critically, more carefully, more ethically. And that is what ethnography has given me. Not just knowledge about a community, but awareness of how deeply media shape how we feel, how we think, and remember. When we press play, we are not just listening, we are participating. Thank you for listening.